Very good morning to all of you, and it is Budget Day 2023. We've come a long way where this exercise, as it was valued 30 years ago as the be-all and end-all and the setting of fates for millions, well, the good news is that the entire year matters, not just Budget Day. But we get an opportunity today to focus on the affairs of state, the Arthashastra of recreating a Swarna Bhumi. And that is the themology with which we are engaging our conversation this morning. There's much to discuss and there are deep conversations to have. Some of them will be deeply technical, some of them will be fascinating, but we'll try to get you fresh perspectives across the board. I'm Rishabh Gulati, the managing editor of this channel, and it's my pleasure to be here on what is now the 14th annual budget that I am having the opportunity to sit in this chair and cover. Kriti Upadhyay joining us this morning, Ankit Jain, an economist, joining us, Sandeep Agarwal from the PhD Chambers of Commerce Industries with us on the broadcast, Sandeep Nandwani, who's the founder of AccuWare, Farhan Petiwala, he is a policy maker, retired IS officer, Ankush Sabharwal, founder of CoreOver Technology Startups, is on the broadcast with us as well. And let's get this quickly cracking and begin these conversations, because what matters as we build up to the budget speech starting at about 11 o'clock, and we've got 3 hours to go. In the basic lines, what are we expecting, what are we hoping, and what can we really suspect is going to be the trend this time around? 40 lakh crore rupees will be disbursed into various sectors and segments over the course of the next few hours. Where should they be going? Let's open this up. Mr. Petiwala, what are you expecting, sir, to happen? Everybody's talking about taxes. This is what us people in the middle class always want to talk about. But there are many other things that are hopefully going to happen to kickstart Team India.
So, Rishabh, I'm actually representing here a company called Hykel Limited, which is into agrochemicals and pharmaceuticals. So, and going to your question, I think clearly industry is looking for some incentives, be it the PLI, production-linked incentives for the agrochemical, the crop protection, and even the pharmaceutical industry. But I think what's most important, and from an expectation perspective, it is that, you know, in this budget, I think the whole industry is looking for support to technology and innovation, because I think that's the sphere that has been really missing, out of this budget in the previous years, because the government must look for some grants to, the pharmaceutical industry, especially after what happened at the COVID pandemic and the world has
But when
seen.
you say grants, what do we mean grants? Why are grants still required in this day and age? I thought the job of government is to get out of business.
So, Rishabh, what happens is a lot of companies, including the multinationals, still prefer the China plus one strategy. They want to import the active and the ingredients which go into the pharmaceutical industry. Now, India needs to be competitive, and we, on the other side, we were getting like a 2% duty drawback and rebate, which we are not getting now. So again, our competitiveness.
Okay. So in every budget, industry by industry, sector by sector, the devil is in the detail, and that computation and analysis is going to go on the entire day. Ankush Sabharwal, what are you hoping for? Ankushji, can you hear us? Okay, let me go across to Mr. Nandwani then. Mr. Nandwani, what are you hoping for?
Yeah, Rishabh. So I represent more of a tech entrepreneur in supply chain space. So I'll talk from that standpoint. What I expect from budget is more like the IT strategy. When I say IT, in addition to information technology, I'll break down INT. I is more like infrastructure push, like this government has been doing it over last budgets also, because the kind of infrastructure we can do in education, we should target India to make a global knowledge hub in that sector. That will help, because coming from a corporate tech background, we have seen like sometimes there is a big gap between what industry is expecting and what output is coming from the education. So the whole vocational training, there should be a huge push. We should try to even consider if some incentive can be passed on to corporates who are hiring on this training, upskilling initiative. And then again, infra in supply chain space. So supply chain, when I say like today, we are host of more than 600 D2C brand, digital to consumer brand. Basically, these are the companies where manufacturing going directly to the consumer, like Boat, and there are many companies. And this market has evolved very well in COVID era. So we need to ensure that product reaches from one corner of the country to other corner at the lowest cost.
Okay,
So
so it's about
infrastructure.
logistics. That's something we have generally struggled at certain kinds, but yeah, there's been a logistics boom in this point of time. Let's take it a step by step. Sandeep Agarwal, your quick expectations before I come into focus on details. Mr. Agarwal, can you hear us, sir? Okay, let's go to Mr. Jain then. Mr. Jain, your expectations.
So my expectations on the budget is, I'm sure the country will continue, the finance minister will continue to go to infra push. But coming up with this is the last full budget, and then 10 more state elections to go. There has to be something which would be done on the middle class. The slabs have not changed in last so many years. ATC deductions, investment deductions have remained the same. So that definitely need a push for a good sentiment of the common man. Apart from, if I talk about, the government has been pushing all these schemes, whether we talk about for different PLI schemes for 24 sectors, they will continue to do that, maybe enhance it. Their expenditure to all the basic education, infra, healthcare has already gone up drastically. Last few years, we have gone away with those tough times of pandemic. So I strongly believe that would continue because, with such a strong tax collection, which is almost 15% growth last year. Our GST collections have grown in the last 5 years from 90,000 crores monthly to 1.5 lakhs crore now. So I strongly believe the government does not have issues in terms of money. They should do something on this, on a common man, which they've been waiting for a decade now. Some changes on the slab systems, some rehaul on the tax matters.
But we keep doing these incremental rehauls. What do they really achieve? What do the incremental slab rehauls achieve?
That will at least give a push to the common man, because they are struggling with the high inflation from last 3 years. Pandemic has killed up. So the salaried class, the common middle, who is actually paying the maximum taxes from where the government comes, there has to be some smile on their face. That's definitely
Nobody's
required.
paying the only taxes. For people watching the broadcast, majority of the taxes are going to come from indirect, which is your GST. 50% is going to go to the state, 50% is going to go to the center. The figures that you're talking about, every month is a record collection, because the Indian economy is growing. Every month should be a record connection, and ad infinitum. Okay, otherwise the economy is not growing. Corporate taxes are woefully low in this country, because they need to be competitive. So corporate tax rates have been cut just a few years ago. But when it comes to the salaried class area that you pay taxes, people like, well, at least me, who pay taxes on all forms of income, we often get double taxed, triple taxed. It's better to run a company and write off all your expenditure sometimes and be taxed at a lower rate of return. Let me quickly get Kriti in from a perspective. Kriti, you spend a lot of time living and working abroad. What is the India story, and what are people looking for the trends today?
Thank you, Rishabh. I think the economic survey, the World Bank, IMF, all have said that India is one of the bright shining spots when we compare it to the world markets, what's happening globally, be it rising inflation, the economic shock. So, definitely good to see that growth that the economic survey predicts. And based on that, definitely see some fiscal consolidation. So, trying to maintain the fiscal deficit and try to get our house in order. I think tax stability is important. So more than rejigging the slabs, I think just increasing collections will be key. Also, I think CapEx infrastructure, as one of the panelists said, is going to be important as well as we try to, further pursue that growth. And finally, this government has pursued a lot of economic reforms, be it IBC, GST, major ease of doing business, single window clearance. So this being the last full budget, there'll be expectations for some more fine tuning of those reforms, that reform parts, maybe more PLIs, some more ease of doing business stuff. And from a foreign investor perspective, look, things look great for India, but still the FPIs are pulling out. You see the numbers as much as we do, Rishabh. So maybe some stuff to lure those pesky foreign investors.
But they are pulling out. But the Sensex has done well despite them. I think there's been some sort of structural shift which is seeing happening there. And I know the entire world is trying to short Adani right now. to bring the Sensex down, but that's a whole another story. Just stay with me, Kriti. Let me get, if I can, into this conversation Mr. Agarwal, who just joined us. Mr. Agarwal, what are your expectations this morning before we kick into some detailed discussions?
Well, the expectations are that the economy should keep on growing. There is a huge upheaval. The European markets are in an upheaval because of the war, and America is in a soup because of the downturn coming in there. So we need to sustain ourselves. We need to ensure that we do not falter the way our neighbors have, and we need to keep on growing. So we need to keep on supporting our government in every way which is possible to ensure that the manufacturing sector in India improves and grows at a faster pace, not at the 6.1% which we are talking about for the economy as a whole, but at a 10% pace minimum for the manufacturing sector. This is the way forward. That's our view.
Okay, way forward. So let's get into specifics now, and we have a lot to cover. Okay, so I'm going to jump in. Let me come back straight to you, Mr. Agarwal. A recession suspected, at least in certain parts of Europe, maybe the United States skids past it. We are predicting a 6.5% fastest on the face of the planet economic growth over the course of the next 1 year. Recession, no chance in India?
No chance.
Okay, same question to you, Mr. Petiwala. Recession, any chance in India? We've seen it 2 years ago because of COVID, a dip in the economy. We've recovered, says the finance minister, and gone past the previous levels. The GDP is now what, 3.2, and hopefully today we'll be told slightly more than that in terms of $1 trillion. Any chance of recession this year?
Well, I think it would, I would say, sort of say it's a wait and watch situation for us, because on one side, if you see the economy survey, which has come out, the GDP forecast is kind of lowering down from 8.7 to 7. And I think, you know, and going forward, it's
slowing versus going into reverse. Is there a risk of going into reverse, sir?
Well, therefore, I said it's a sort of a status quo. I think it's important to see.
Okay, can't commit. We'll have to see. So there are some risk factors as far as you're concerned. Same question to you, Mr. Nandwani. Any chance of recession? Any troubling signs that you're seeing in this economy?
See, we have seen a slight decline in export in economic survey, but the domestic consumption is increasing. I think if finance minister can work on some personal tax reform and give more cash to people, increase consumption, we see a very positive mood.
Okay, no, you don't see much of a chance over there. Kriti, any chance that you're suspecting recession in the Indian economy?
Well, it's highly unlikely, but I think it's going to be key to ensure that we stay insulated from all these global shocks. So that's the main takeaway that I'll be looking for, and just focusing on jobs and manufacturing. I think that's an agenda that's been long kept on the shelf.
Okay, jobs and manufacturing is the terminology. I'm trying to get into headline races. Sandeep Agarwal, inflation. We've been doing okay. We're not in trouble, but we've been increasing interest rates. Is inflation under control? If we are saying, and as the economic survey has told us yesterday, we are currently at about 5.5%. We want to be 6.5% since the economic survey, which is a good level of inflation. Why is that a good level of inflation?
Well, I tell you one thing, you know, if there is no inflation, the growth also falters. It is, you know, inflation and growth comes in together, because if there is an inflation today, that is, there is a demand of the goods. And demand of the goods ensures that there is investment into the manufacturing sector.
Is it under control, sir? We've seen spiraling inflation where WPI is at 14-15% in the past. We are seeing troubling times in the UK right now, in Germany and Europe, maybe under control now in America. Is it going to be a problem for us this year? Can we expect an inflationary shock?
Well, I will tell you one thing. The raw material prices worldwide have fallen down. And so the inflation will be under control for the next year at least.
Okay. Fingers crossed is under control. Ankit Jain, inflation under control?
I think inflation is already 5.5–6%, which is not bad. And I do not see it going up because the worldwide depression will happen. So the commodity prices will continue to go down. This will keep a tame on the inflation side of it.
Okay, inflation side risks are good. Mr. Nandwani, inflation under control?
Yeah, it will remain primarily under control because of the currency. Global supply chains are impacted. We have seen raw material costs going up, so government will have to keep it
Okay,
in
Farhan
control.
Petiwala, inflation under control.
Yeah, I mean, inflation to me, Rishabh, looks under control. But as I said, I'm still a bit apprehensive because for me, more than inflation, it is the private consumption that I'm really looking at. It's the consumption. We've seen the consumptions at the highest in the current fiscal, but I think it's important to keep that growth story on. And, just to add, I think many a times we forget when we look at the whole value chain in India, it's manufacturing and the consumption, but India still is known globally for that jugaad innovation. I think we have to kind of get out of that whole.
Okay, less jugaad innovation, more like whole scale. We are developing the next quantum computer kind of innovation. I'm going to come to that during the course of the day. But okay, if the fundamentals are okay, we somehow are growing at the fastest rate in the globe right now. The global shocks, and I know this is probably is not a fundamentally systemic global shock that is going on like what happened in 2008. It's more of a cyclical readjustment after all the money that's being pumped in the past couple of years. But we have been so far insulated. Does that then mean that there is a structural different orbit for the Indian economy, because the amount of money that the FIIs have pulled out of the Indian Stock Exchange and it's still not collapsed, we're getting an indication of what is going on. Let me get Mr. Agarwal there. Are we in a structurally different orbit? Are we in a different tangent to where the world is going? Sandeep
Well,
ji.
yes, I would say that India is the new China. It is just starting, but I can say that the world is looking at India as a manufacturing base. So therefore, it is a different tangent because people are stopping their manufacturing. Europe is losing their production and new plants are coming up in India, especially with the PLI scheme and all that. So therefore, India is on a different tangent right now, and we hope that it continues to be so.
Okay, but what are the problems we are being faced when we, okay, let's focus on the manufacturing then. Mrs. Nandwani, when we are talking about manufacturing in this country, we have a problem. We are primarily assemblers. The core of everything, if we are saying that we have become the largest mobile phone exporter, the second largest in the world, well, the reality is you don't make the semiconductors, you don't make the screen, you don't make the battery. So the three main components of a mobile phone don't get made here, so we're assembling them. When it comes to solar parks, and we're building the largest in the world in Gujarat as we speak, okay, so green energy, we're doing a great job. But we have to figure out whether we want the cheap silicon from China, or do we want to make our own? How do we find that balance today?
Yes, so what government should look is like they should focus on R&D. Companies who invest in R&D, they should be highly subsidized. We should encourage the culture of innovation. See, so far we have been doing very well in services, but we can't say for manufacturing. We even need to look at corporate tax. How can we, I know it is currently in the range of 22 to 25, but if we have to compare globally, it is in the range of 15%. There is an international taxation acceptance rate of 15%. So we really need to relook if we have to encourage innovation and manufacturing. Can we look at changing this corporate
okay,
tax?
so no, but those are headline things. When we're talking about innovation, sir, why do we struggle with it so desperately?
Yeah, because currently, like the culture itself, we are more focused on assembling. We are not focused on R&D. I think a lot of push has to go right from our education institutes, where we encourage PhD students, we encourage research, we try to bring them incentive, and then how corporate and this education can work together to fund those initiatives. See, it is not a short-term stint. We need to achieve it, but we need to take steps in the right direction to encourage that ecosystem.
No, but we're having this conversation. We are happy replicating technology, and the Chinese, let's face it, built their entire economy for the past 30 years on replicating technology. Is it too much to say, Ankit Jain, that if you want to build, I don't know, 6G, you're going to have to spend $30 billion over the next 5 years? Where's the money going to come from? Is it okay that we're in a replicating technology space right now?
I think the most important is we have to come out of the assembling space, because we have not been manufacturing over years. So it is not about technology, because technology is already happening, and now the technology is global. Everywhere it's global. So if there's a technology development happen in US, we can easily transfer it back in India and start manufacturing. So the most important thing is we have to come out of that assembly space.
No, but high. Okay, how is the question, right? What are the, so I'll give you my analysis of
Yes.
how I look at it. When you are trying to build an electric vehicle, okay, the electric vehicle has got to run on the battery. So first of all, you got to make the battery.
Yes.
To make the battery, first you have to find the lithium, or you need to find some other technology, sodium, something else. If you don't have any of these, you are just assembling the electric vehicle, because the tires and all you can have, but that's not the main component.
But we have to work out on the backward integration. So we are starting from the assembly, going back, starting making the battery, then finding the lithium. That's how the backward integration will come, and the entire supply chain will start working in the favor of India. It can't happen in a
No, but where is the innovation? Where is the push? Then should I then be sending these Australian companies and their geologists along with Indians to Ladakh to look for lithium?
Yes, that
What
will
should I be
continue.
doing?
That will happen. Because when we will do the backward integration, this all things have to happen parallel. It can't happen just one by one. So we will keep doing parallelly for whether it is electric vehicles, whether it is mobile phones or any other steel manufacturing, everything will go back in hand.
Okay, I was having a very fascinating conversation, Mr. Petiwala, just a couple of days ago, right? So in the crypto space, and I know crypto is highly controversial, so that's going to be a long-winded conversation. But in the crypto space, okay, one of the top 10 cryptos right now, tokens, is being built on the Polygon-matic blockchain. You know, all Instagram, Metaverse, all these guys are working of a company founded by 3 Indians out of Bombay, okay, doing hardcore innovation. They've got Sequoia, Tiger Global, Mark Cuban, and everybody pumping, you know, billions into them. Yeah. But they've left. They are now based out of Dubai. So when we say we want to do frontline innovation, we have people doing frontline innovation. Do we not understand it? Can't we keep up with the trends? Why are we so struggling in retaining this kind of talent that wants to work from India?
True. No, I think, Rishabh, you are bang on. The biggest problem we still face in our country, and I think I kind of go back to what I spoke, you know, on our value chain. I think India has become like the mobile assembler of the world, or you know, people across the world do not perceive India to be innovative. And one of the fundamental thing we need to do, or probably the government needs to do, is, you know, this whole jugaad should be stopped celebrating.
Okay. You can argue this both ways. MOS Finance speaking out this morning before the budget.
आज देशाचा अर्थसंकल्प देशाचे अर्थमंत्री माननीय सीतारामनजी मॅडम लोकसभेमध्ये सादर करणार आहेत. त्या अगोदर आम्ही अर्थमंत्री निर्मला सीतारामन.
Okay, we've got. I mean, he's saying that she's going to present the budget speech. We already know that. Okay, so I mean, let's not jump in. Sorry, I interrupted you, Mr. Petiwala.
No. I'm kind of getting to a point where Indian agrochemical manufacturers, you know, they're renowned for producing molecules of the highest quality. But still the problem is, you know, multinationals want to import active ingredients. They don't want to support. So on one side, government has had a push on Make in India. I think, you know, in the last few years, it's kind of got drifted away, Rishabh. I think my expectation would be in this budget, you know, and we at Heikel feel that the government should be creating more PLIs and incentivize and create that whole environment.
Yeah, but you'd think, Mr. Petiwala, you spend time in government. I thought the business of government is you provide the infrastructure, okay? Yeah. Get out of the way with all your what was it, 75,000 different kinds of regulations and compliances, okay? Reduce them down to a few thousand.
True.
If you want to figure out taxes, cut the slabs, get rid of all the other kinds of, you know, write-offs that people get. Simplify things and get out of the way.
Yeah.
We are being told it's happening. It is being simplified and government is getting out of the way. Are they? Is it become easier? Have we actually got rid of the 30,000 compliances that we say we have?
I wouldn't entirely agree, but yes, we are getting there. It is certainly, you know, when we talk about ease of doing business in India, it has improved. In many states, the ease of doing business, like in Gujarat, in Karnataka, in Maharashtra, it has really become much better than what it was. But yes, there are still issues on the ground when it comes to, you know, the custom duties or the GST, sort of, you know, many a times there are changes that keep happening back and forth.
Okay, yeah, the changes keep happening, but again, are we structurally different? Now, GST had a lot of problems because we just couldn't get the website to work for so many years, okay? let's face it, not everybody wants India to grow also. There are people in the pharma industry globally who want India to suffer. Suddenly you see stories of these children dying all over the world because of Indian pharma. That's not, there's no proof that that actually happened. Okay, let's not kid ourselves. And of course, the massive controversy going on regarding this report into Adani. We don't know what's going on, but I can tell you that a lot of money is to be made by hedge funds shorting stocks across the globe. Okay, that does happen, whether there's a structural issue or not. Let me get Kriti back in. Kriti, a structural difference. Do we need to be innovators? The Chinese have done 40 years of growth, okay, just copying everyone. What is the Indian model? How is it going to be different?
I think we are innovators. It's just that, sure, there are some structural issues. Now, what you're saying is that you're completely right, and so are the panelists, that, you know, we are just being integrators at this point. Why isn't the sort of innovative technologies sort of staying in and coming into manufacturing? Look, a lot of reforms do happen, and that's something that even the economic survey said. Sort of take effect or show effect in lag. So I'm still hopeful on the India's manufacturing story. I think it's just a matter of time. But look, states also play an important role. And things like power, things like land acquisition, licenses, you know, all of this labor comes up to states, and it's important that, you know, states play an active role. And you're seeing right now new industrial corridors coming, new plans being made. So that'll all take 5-10 years.
Okay. So let me jump into this. Okay, let me jump into this. Sandeep Agarwal, government says they're building 50 to 60 kilometers of road a day. Okay. I've had people, I've seen it change. Okay. I went for a holiday. I left from my house. The first red light I hit was in Karnal. Okay, South Delhi to Karnal, no red lights. Meerut Expressway, you tried it. Delhi, Bombay is being built. Everything is being done at rapid pace. You can actually, this is a change you can actually see happening. Okay, is it more than just visible? Does it have an economic impact, or is it just a pretty road for people to drive fast on?
So, you know, the economic highways are built through roads, through railways, through airlines, through products for their country by their people. India has started doing it with the 4G network, and it has been huge success. Indian companies have started making, and very soon India will have its own 4G equipments.
Okay.
So therefore this is possible.
Okay, now the problem here is that the R&D takes time. If somebody is working on nuclear fusion, it might take 40 years. Okay, if somebody is working on 6G, you got to start now. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, the Wi-Fi system that you use is out of date at home. Okay, Wi-Fi 7 has come. All right, this country is not on Wi-Fi 6. 5G is rolling out, but let's face it, it's still difficult to make a phone call because we couldn't figure out 4G, because I don't know what the heck we did with our licenses and these auctions, and a total mess which is an unraveling. So let's come down to anecdotal basics. We have to figure out what government should be doing, because government's job is to empower and get out of the way. In the end, Team India has got to build a $5-10 trillion GDP. So let's figure out what government is going to be doing. And I'll take an example. Everything around me right now, from the TV screen that you're watching this on, to the camera in front of me, computer in front of me, phone in my hand, and I go for Korean, okay, go Samsung, okay, they're not sponsoring this telecast, don't buy Chinese, you don't need to buy Chinese anymore. So go for Korean. But everything has a silicon chip inside it, okay? We don't make the silicon chips in India. We are now setting up the foundries. Ankit Jain, okay? Setting up versus it's done. We've been having this conversation 1 year. When will we see the first semiconductor fab coming out? Whether it's Gujarat, Maharashtra, doesn't make a difference.
So, I agree, but there is a very strong push from the government, so it's going to happen. That's what I said. The backward integration has already started. The infra is already.
So you were saying, as the finance minister was leaving this morning, you were saying that we want to do R&D, that we want to do PLI. That's a 70,000 crore PLI, okay? But these are technologies that the Taiwanese who are, you know, we have friendly associations with them. Why is it not translating? Why is the, you know, the groundbreaking not happening?
It's happening. If you look at the mobile export, that has gone 3 times in the last 1.5 years. It is happening, but obviously it can't happen overnight, and the push from the government has to be with the right intent. It has to keep pushing. The way you say there is no red light from South Delhi to Karnal, which has actually helped. I know a couple of clients of ours who are okay to move their factories now to Karnal, even because they feel it's completely comfortable to drive down and make people shift. The logistics.
Okay, but when you're creating, okay, I want you to, ladies and gentlemen, I want to picture the moment, okay? India is under the Raj, okay? We don't make steel, all right, you need somebody who's going to do structurally start an industry in this country. Okay, so you have Jamshed Tata. Okay, he goes first, tries with the British, doesn't get any headway, tries with the Americans, Tenga, then finally ends up in Japan, finds the steel technology. He builds Asia's largest steel foundry. The steel industry is born in India. Okay, and now it's called Jamshedpur. A semiconductors industry needs to be born in India. Okay, 70,000 crores PLI. Is that enough? Is it going to get it done? Is the question, Mr. Nandwani.
Yes, I think we need to keep focusing on reform. Continuous reform is the only answer, Rishabh. I feel we have to start from incentivize knowledge education, encourage IP creation, licensing, and in parallel focus on our strength area, which are our service and assembly. We can't defocus from that. But
No, but on the specific question, on the specific question, sir, because you know, you can't do your job if you don't have the semiconductor chips being made in India. Okay, I'm not even talking about the the quantum computing and the what we are now down to 4 nanometer or 5 nanometer. Just anything that takes to get an AC or a fridge or a phone made, which is 70, 80 nanometers, is good enough. When do we see structurally a new industry being born in India?
Yeah, so to bring that change, again, see, it will be very important for government to encourage, build that ecosystem. We need to create those logistic hub. We need to encourage raw material innovation. We need to even look for technology sharing across the global thing and focus on it.
But how is government going to do? Then that's the Sandeep Agarwal. That's the issue. What is the government's job here? So the government says, okay, here's your PLI. Okay. Here are the, sort of lubrication we can do with the silicon manufacturers in the world, and there aren't very many, okay? The majority of the companies are based out of Taiwan. The other is Qualcomm in the US. Vietnam is catching up, and that's about it, okay? And you can, of course, qualify for lower end units, the Chinese. So we've got the PLI. We are lubricating, okay, the conversation, the policy conversation. Now it's up to industry.
Well, it is not so simple. Why? Because this is a very high-tech thing, and equipments from around the world need to be taken together. The investors need to be sure that Apple is going to buy the chip which is being produced in India, because even if it is $0.1 more expensive, they are not going to buy. And also, we must understand, in this electronic world, in this current manufacturing scheme of things, the world dictates what are the components and who are the supplier of those components you can use. If you use something else, it is not allowed. So it is a complicated thing.
Okay, but
so it is going to take time. But it will happen.
But it's not impossible. So how do you dominate industries? Okay, how does and if you think the Chinese dominate them, you're highly mistaken. The Chinese dominate nothing. Okay, the Chinese model is copy, all right, then ban all the others. So in the software space, copy Google, then ban Google, replicate Google, then build up Jack Ma, and then if he pisses you off, cut him down and put him to exile in Japan. That's not our model. So just look at the mobile phone space. Okay, so in order to build the hardware, you need to build the screen, the battery, and the main chip, which are the communication chips come from Qualcomm, the silicon is coming from Taiwan, the screens are coming from Korea. Okay, then on top of everything, then you need software. The software is controlled by the Americans, Apple and Google. They control the Americans. So tomorrow, if Paytm decides that they want to run some scheme, and Google doesn't like it, they can shut them down from the Google Play, the Play Store. That's a direct impact. So the operating system. Now, how many people in this broadcast knew last week an Indian operating system called Bharat OS has been launched? Okay, to try to take down structural thing that you own the operating system, you manufacture the hardware, then you manufacture the apps on the hardware. So from A to Z, okay, the structural ecosystem is operating from this soil. Not easy to do, but not certainly impossible, Ankit Jain.
Yes.
It needs some vision. I mean, come on.
Talking about the structure.
Why can't we? Hardware now I've had a conversation. So the operating system, why is the world's #1 mobile phone operating system not made out of India?
I think we are already doing that from the startup hub. That's keeping the government is focused. I think we are missing three things which you're talking about: is structural reforms. The government push is happening, infra is happening, startups happening, industry is ready. But three things which are completely missing, and which is land, labor, and ease of doing. Because if you want a large plant like Jamshedpur to be put in today, do we have that much of land to be put in? The POSCO came in India and went off. They did not able to set up the plant. The Vedanta has to close down the plant. The labor issues still we have. Do we have that clarity on the labor issues per se? The ease of doing business, that's again, it's missing on the ground. A lot of things have gone away, but still missing on the ground.
Since you mentioned, let me take a case in point example. Okay, now, Tuticorin, there's a copper smelter operating there. Okay, there are reports that there is an environmental issue, protest startup, some insane person in the police administration decides it's okay to start shooting at people who are protesting. People die. 40% of India's copper production capacity vanishes overnight. Okay? India goes from a net exporter of copper to a net importer of processed copper. This causes structural damage. Some of it can be conspiratorial. We don't know what's going on. Something can happen. Kriti Upadhyay, they're very serious things that we have to understand, that while we are in our all earnestness thinking how do we become better, there are people across the world, maybe in this country, who don't want us to become better. They want us to stay where we are.
No, I think coming back to the semiconductor and chip discussion, I just wanted to add one point, Rishabh, that look, the quantum of money is not necessarily enough, and neither is our entire strategy. I'll tell you why. The whole semiconductor supply chain is divided into three parts, right? So we are focusing on manufacturing, something that is the most hardest to crack, something that we don't have a core competency in, something that took, more than 50 billion over 2 decades for China investment just to capture 16% of that supply chain. I think for us, the real opportunity lies in design and ATP, which is assembly, testing, and packaging. We already have significant inroads there. The whole, if you include these two parts, design and ATP, that forms like 56% of the whole supply chain. So rather than focusing PLIs, because you're looking at $10 billion or something, and like just to set up a small foundry, it takes $1 billion. So I think it's not enough money for long term. Definitely, we need to be doing this. We need to be having semiconductor foundries and so on. But I think short term strategy right now, we need to focus on capturing the supply chain and design
again, so I'm trying to identify issues here and anecdotally so people can relate. Now, what happens in Sandeep Agarwal, right? So we talk about IIT IIM. There's a good reason we talk about IIT IIM. Okay, what's the good reason? The good reason is if 10 lakh people give an exam and 100 get selected, so the best of the best are going there, right? They go to IIT, some of them go back to IIM, so this is now the best talent, okay? Then they get all of them get scholarships from Boston, okay? They get taken out, they get pumped with money, they get innovation, they come to investors, they come out, and then they're running Microsoft, then they're running Google, okay? But they're not here. Now, why are they still not here? Something is going wrong in our education system that is tempting them to take that scholarship from MIT, okay? Something is going wrong in our entrepreneurial system that they can definitely work better, get more investment, do startups better even today in San Francisco than they can do in Bengaluru. Why?
No, as we said, why the startups, why the innovation is there in US more than anywhere else in the world is because, even in China now, is because, again I would say, from the government support, the government in the, military industrial complex ensures that only American made goods are bought, and so therefore, and also any new design, any new technology which comes up is lapped up. The government is ready to fund it, and maybe 10 fails but 1 succeeds. Take the example of Israel.
Yeah.
Israel is doing exactly so.
No, so it's a good example. Israel is a great example. So he's talking about DARPA, okay? So DARPA sits and they have a massive few $100 billion budget, okay? Some say over 5 years they spend about $1 trillion. So the internet has come out from there, okay? Drones have come out from there. NASA is pumping now. Remember, NASA is not just space, it's also aeronautical. Now they're building the next generation of aircraft, designs along with Boeing, okay? So this is frontline world domination, all right? My question was more basic. My question is that we get the innovators, percentage of people working in NASA, all Indians, half, 1/4 of the doctors holding up the National Health Service in the UK, all Indians, top of these companies, all Indians. So the talent is coming out from here, but for some reason, it is either being tempted, sucked or browbeaten into other places, and it's not happening here at the pace we want to. Mr. Pettiwala, why not? Why is the next big $1 trillion company not coming out of IIT Madras? Why is it still coming out of either San Fran or Boston?
So Rishabh, one line answer is, I'm reminded of what we used to call in the 90s when I graduated from engineering and UPSC, which is called brain drain. And I think that's still relevant today. It may not be intellectual or brain drain, but I think it's a complete drain of our next generation. Taking example of my own son, they get an opportunity in the UK and they want to go and work there because they feel in India roads are not good, and I don't think the issue is going to get sorted in the next 1 or 2 or 3 or 5 years. So
is it primarily lifestyle or is it opportunity?
I think it's both, Rishabh. You can't just coming back to your question, I think India has to focus on what we say, creating a whole entrepreneurial ecosystem. Let me give you an example. In India, any entrepreneur who runs a company or manufacturing, he's always scared. There are hundreds of taxation authorities. In 5 years, they can open your case. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, start questioning you. You took a duty drawback for this. That was not the right code. Now you have to pay a penalty. Now, imagine an Indian manufacturer who wants to invest more money to manufacture more products and export them like we do at Heikel. We're 100% EOU. But the problem is, many a times, the system around us.
The system is bad. Okay, so I think there's consensus, and I keep saying government's job is to get out of the way. It is India that's going to build a $5 trillion economy, not government of India. Okay. So Ankush Sabharwal joining us this morning. Ankush Sabharwal, we are having a large conversation on this. What is the preeminent need for structural change? We will see incremental announcements in this budget. Certain expenditures will go up by 7%, 10%, 20%. But what's the structural change message you want to take away today?
Yeah, I want, and I'm sure I think that's going to happen. If you see the last budget also, the tax exemption has been extended to the startups. It was for 7 years and now it's for 10 years. And I think I would expect that to extend a bit. I think earlier the startup exemption was till 31st of March 2023. I would expect that to increase. And I think the focus should be more on AI startups. And I think it's not publicly announced. You'll be surprised and happy to know Department of Science and Technology has already started allocating budgets to fund AI-based startups.
No, but what is those? I mean, again, when we say fund, what do we mean? Okay, we've been talking about funding things, but government can do X. Where is the funding going to come? If Mrs. Sabharwal, you're going to be building the next ChatGPT, okay? What do you need?
See, what we need, government has provided us. I'll give you an example. IIIT Delhi has got 100 crore funds to invest. They have the cash to invest in cognitive AI-based companies, and we were the first one to get the funds. The money is there, right? It's 15,000 crore fund. I think central and state government putting together. It's just a matter of we, the startups, approaching, pitching, and getting that. Money is there. I think we have to start building something, right?
Okay, so, but is it a logic change? Is the question, and I am convinced that there is at least a mentality change. Okay,
absolutely.
People want in government to do things differently. People in this country want to do things differently. A certain confidence is now coming our way, and I think the 2 years of COVID pandemic, when we were all left to ourselves, okay, we did just fine. If I look to the right of me, I see absolutely devastation in Pakistan, economic, political, and otherwise. If I look south, there is what chaos and pandemonium happening in Sri Lanka. Bangladesh has begun to struggle, and they were at the fulcrum. Bangladesh's GDP, ladies and gentlemen, sometime this year will overtake what was West Pakistan. The Chinese ain't growing. Okay, the Europeans are in desperate trouble because of their very intelligent proxy war in Europe, which is all being done just to sell American tanks, but to the detriment of the people. So now let's look at it step by step from a different flavor. Ankit Jain,
Yes.
are the Chinese in systemic trouble? They've been, my entire lifetime, China has been booming. My entire lifetime, okay, probably your entire lifetime.
Yes. So
First time I've seen it where probably I don't believe the 1%, 2% figures of growth is probably in reversal right now. It's something dodgy is going on.
definitely, though we all understand we don't have the right numbers from China, but China is in big trouble. They've tried to close down their economy for 2 years, and now the world is not trusting them. That the biggest challenge in last 40 years, what has happened is all the Europeans, Americans have trusted them, and that's how the manufacturing boom has happened there with their government. If you look at now, the trust factor of the world on the China has gone away in last 3 years.
No, but what about the economic factor? Well, the Chinese model was, okay, you're manufacturing, all right, I'll give you the labor, which is almost as slave labor costs. I'll just imprison all these Uyghurs, okay, in internment camps, and I'm going to give you almost at, sweatshop costs, okay?
Correct.
But in return, you will technology transfer here, all right? You'll bring in the machines that make the machines over here, okay? And that was the model. Is that model now reaching an top? That's it. It's done.
Yes, it is done because that trust, the trust of the world has gone away. So now I know so many European companies, American companies who are talking to us that we want to set up our shops in India, maybe start with a small, because we don't want to just bang on
Okay,
China.
so the Apple iPhone being made or assembled rather in Chennai. Okay, is that a unique anecdote, or is this that a headline of something larger that's going on?
It is just a start. It is just a start. Because these are the testing of the waters which the world is trying to do.
Sandeep
within India.
Agarwal, is China in trouble? Is the 40 years of just one-sided booming, is it ending?
No, that's only one way of looking at it. I don't believe China is in trouble. China is growing. Maybe it is growing at a smaller pace. It cannot grow at 8 to 10% continuously for 40 years.
They did it for 30 years. They did it for 30 years.
They did it, but now, obviously, because, why Japan came down? The growth in Japan came down because ultimately America realized that, boosting Japan by buying from them has resulted in their downfall. Then they went to China. It has happened the same in China now. And they have understood that, so they are moving away from China. But China is not Japan. And Japan itself is survived and doing very well.
Yeah, so Japan is probably the best example of an economy that is peaked but hasn't collapsed.
Exactly.
So they're carrying on. They have negative interest rates in Japan, and they've been there for a long period of time. So if you put money in a bank account in Japan, you actually get negative 0.25%. So you want to go out there and spend. The population is aging. So a demographic shift has already happened. Ladies and gentlemen, as of this year, India is now the largest population in the world. Okay, so the demographic shift has happened. We're no longer the second largest. As of this year, 2023, India overtakes China as the largest population in the world. China's population is in decline for the first time, and ours is still rising. But is there a fundamental structural shift that is going on away from China? Kriti Upadhyay, we've talked about it for 3 years. Has it started happening?
Absolutely, Rishabh. We've talked many times about India trying to woo those supply chains going out of China, Vietnam, and some successes. Sure, we're making some of those iPhone Cs in India. Sure, we're making some small chips and some small components in mobile equipment, but I think we have a long way to go. And again, there is an opportunity. There's a black box in China. What's happening there? There is, all the global shocks around the Ukraine war. I think energy crisis, is with the rupee also come devaluating more. I think
Is
another
China in trouble,
opportunity.
Kriti? Okay, politically in turmoil. I mean, because if I look everywhere around me, Pakistan is in a lot of trouble. Okay, as bad as it gets. There's no comparison now, apple and orange comparison now. We are talking about structural reform in semiconductors. They're talking about increasing taxes so they can qualify for an IMF loan. The Pakistan is actually getting the IMF loan. The Sri Lankans are still waiting for it. They aren't getting it.
India and Pakistan have been dehyphenated long back. I mean, we are not even in the same league. I don't know why we still keep comparing the two
No, so I'm saying,
countries.
so that's exactly, as I said, it's an apples and oranges comparison, but the Chinese are the second largest economy in the world. Are they in trouble? Progress is not a straight line. Economies do fall.
And especially when, there's so much information asymmetry, there's sort of, concentrated power, there's no democracy. So in those conditions, there's always a threat and an issue. But look, there's such a black box on what really is happening out
Okay,
of
but
China.
I'm just trying to see, I'm trying to figure out how they've managed to do it, which is some lessons for us to learn. We have to learn lessons from the Koreans.
Actively woo. I mean, the Chinese actively
Okay,
woo.
here's a good example for people watching this broadcast. We've grown up socialist, whether we like it or not. A 5-year planning commission. I don't think we do it anymore. We cut that out a few years ago. That you had planned expenditure and unplanned expenditure. It was the same thing for the same purpose, but under two categories because we were all a socialist way of thinking. Okay, so in our socialist way of thinking, while we do wow to the Tatas and Birlas and of the world, as we grew up thinking. Okay, we don't like big business. All right, so we don't really like them. Okay, we want to bring them down for some reason. The Korean miracle, where Korea was nothing in the 70s, they were nothing. They just come out of a devastating war that divided the country. Okay, Samsung, LG, okay, they dominate the Korean economy, but also they dominate the global economy and R&D in certain spaces. Okay, there's no running away from that. So our fear of big conglomerates. I mean, we don't fear Elon Musk for some reason. We don't fear Microsoft for some reason, but we really fear if Ambani, Adani, Tata get too big, something dodgy is going on. So I want to try to figure out something. There's a very famous movie which was actually made by a Malaysian scamster, okay, in which Leonardo DiCaprio is the star and he says, okay, sell me this pen. Okay, my question, Ankit Jain, is how did the Chinese sell Indians agarbattis? How did they do it?
How did they
were selling us 3,000 crores of agarbattis every year. Okay, how did they sell us agarbattis?
Because for us, the manufacturing cost was 1 rupee, they were selling at 25 cents.
How? What were they doing?
They were devaluating the rupees. The labor cost was much lower. They could actually scale up the business, which we can't. That's what I said previous in my panel. We can't scale up a business here. If you want to do such a large scale up, there are thousands and thousands of issues which comes up to an entrepreneur. Can you set up a plant which requires 10,000 acres there?
Okay.
No.
Okay. So the disrupting model, which is what Uber is, and let me get Mr. Petiwala in this. Okay. What do these companies come and do? They raise $25 billion. Okay, largest raised funds ever by a company that's never made a profit. Okay, and they say that I'm going to pay you, the driver, much more than you could possibly earn otherwise. I'm going to ask you, the consumer, much less than you will pay for an auto rickshaw, okay? And I'm going to come and disrupt the space. The Chinese did this with tomatoes, okay? It's a fascinating case study of the best tomatoes that came out of Italy and Spain. They got the growers there and they came and dominated the entire market. How is it, Farhan Petiwala, that the Chinese could sell agarbattis to Indians? We can make agarbattis at home. It's not a skilled job. It's not about PLI. How did they do it?
So we have to go to the root, Rishabh. Look at the situation. Chinese government has created a whole ecosystem where they promote exports. They promote entrepreneurship, manufacturing. They don't go behind there. Like you rightly said, Indian, for some reason, we get scared when a company goes really big, that maybe they'll start dominating, maybe they'll start dictating price to us. I think that's not the way the Chinese work. For them, they believe in volumes, and I think rightly so. I want to bring one point here, Rishabh, which we've not talked about, none of us. India has to add 10 million jobs every year every month.
Yeah.
Actually, we're talking about 120 million jobs to be added every year in the next 3 years if we want to reach that 5 trillion economy. And where are these jobs going to come from? So manufacturing, clearly, what we've done in the IT space in the 90s and the 2000s is where I think we missed. The pharma industry could have actually made it.
No, pharma can do it, in manufacturing can do it, because, okay, here's a lesson from my generation growing up, right? When I was in college and you couldn't figure out anything else, okay? You could join a call center and make decent money. You would, some people, kids joining call centers in small cities were earning more than their parents retired on, okay? So that was the boom he's talking about, right? If nothing else, you found no other job. I was going to media, other people going to other things, okay? You found no other job, you joined a call center, okay? And if you're willing to work hard, put in 18 hours a day, you could make decent money, okay? That was a boom era. Now others are jumping in on this, but I'm not going to run away from my point, okay? When you go in and you apply economies of scale, it's not like we can't do it. So the government of India, ladies and gentlemen, okay? Again, this is a case study in effect. Wanted to make the sensible decision of shifting the country to LED bulbs. Okay? Yeah. So what do they go and do? LED bulbs are expensive. They go to the best LED bulb manufacturers. They say, you set up shop in India, we will place an order for 75 crore. That is 750 million units. True. Okay? 750 million units we will order. All right? So much so that you can literally stand outside and distribute LED bulbs for free, because the cost of each bulb unit has come down so much, okay? And now all of us are using LED bulbs. So you can go in and completely disrupt. We are capable of it, but it brings me back to the moot point, Kriti Upadhyay, how the Chinese took an Indian industry, okay, which is making agarbattis, and came and sold us 2,000 crores worth of them. Because they said, okay, here's a market, I'm going to ruin all the local suppliers, I'm going to be the cheapest, fastest. I mean, I on Diwali, I look for LED lights that are not made in China. But my electrician can't find them in the national capital. I go through all of them because, look, this looks Chinese, this looks Chinese, this looks Chinese, because they no longer mark them. They're supposed to, but they don't do it. So they come and dominate the space. Now, do we need to have disruptor models, at least when it comes to protecting our own domestic market?
I think we just need to have people to produce things with their hands. Earlier they were doing that in agriculture. Right now, the share of agriculture is way, way, way too much more than its productivity. Most of our productivity comes from services. For most of my life, manufacturing has been stuck at the same, about 17% or so. So I think all these people from agriculture need to move into manufacturing. People need to manufacture stuff. And us, you were talking about whether there is, something wrong or what is different. Okay. Look, we need to actively move. You're absolutely right that, there is still hesitancy towards money, towards big businesses. But South Korea, you were talking about South Korea, Rishabh.
I don't get it. Okay, I don't get it. We all go, oh my God, Elon Musk. Oh, okay. We are all gushing and doing other things that I can't say on live television. But oh my God, Ambani chore hai, Adani chore hai, sab chore hai. What is this Elon Musk is doing? Who funds him? NASA funds most of his of SpaceX. Subsidies fund Tesla. That's how his companies are running. All his giga factories are given on free land, free water. His headquarters are built on free land. They have competition between states on who's going to get the next Tesla headquarters. Where do you think these guys get the money from? Okay, so oh my God, Elon Musk, please make your cars in Shanghai and sell them to Indians and we will buy them. But if the Indians say, no, we don't want your Shanghai cars, either make them here or get lost, oh, we are so anti-competitive. That's also nonsense. I need to take a break for 1 minute. We come back with more interesting examples than agarbattis, I promise you. See you in a minute.
Presenting sponsor, SBI Life. अपने लिए
खुल रहे हैं संभावनाओं के नए द्वार। प्रदेश में औद्योगिक विकास को मिल रही है रफ्तार। भगवंत मान के नेतृत्व में खुशहाल पंजाब की तस्वीर लगातार निखरती जा रही है। पंजाब सरकार की ओर से मिल रहे सहयोग और प्रोत्साहन ने आज प्रदेश के उद्योग जगत को नई उम्मीद से जोड़ा है। पंजाब इस वक्त इन्वेस्टमेंट के लिहाज से उद्यमियों के लिए फेवरेट डेस्टिनेशन साबित हो रहा है। प्रदेश में नए उद्योग तेजी से स्थापित होते जा रहे हैं और इन्हें उन्नति की राह से जोड़ रही है राज्य सरकार की बेमिसाल औद्योगिक नीतियाँ। प्रदेश में कारोबार से जुड़ी सुविधाओं को बढ़ाते हुए राज्य सरकार लगातार यहां निवेश के लिए बेहतर माहौल बनाने में जुटी है। आज पंजाब के उद्योग दुनिया भर के निवेशकों को आकर्षित कर रहे हैं। राज्य में आईटी और इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स उद्योग ने 770 करोड़ रुपए के निवेश को आकर्षित किया है, जो साल 2021 के मुकाबले लगभग 68% ज्यादा है। आज पंजाब में 3.7 लाख से ज्यादा MSME है, जो राज्य के औद्योगिक विकास में अहम भूमिका निभा रहे हैं। सिंगल विंडो सिस्टम की मजबूती और सभी तरह के उद्योगों के लिए बिजली की सबसे कम दरों की पेशकश जैसी दूसरे कई ठोस कदम राज्य में निवेश की राह को लगातार आसान बना रहे हैं। भारत सरकार की BRAP की रिपोर्ट में ईज ऑफ डूइंग बिजनेस में तेजी से सुधार करने वाले राज्य में पंजाब टॉप अचीवर्स में से एक है। मुख्यमंत्री भगवंत मान ने जब से पंजाब की कमान संभाली है, तब से राज्य के विकास का एक नया अध्याय शुरू हो गया है।
प्रेजेंटेड बाय SBI लाइफ, अपने लिए अपनों के लिए।
Okay, welcome back. You're watching NewsX. We've been in the middle of a riveting conversation. I just want to pick up where we left off because we're having this conversation in the break as well. Okay, Sandeep ji was just mentioning. Okay, one district, one product. Okay, now I know in government they're taking it very seriously. Okay, so it's the Shenzhen model. Now, if you want to pick up a certain product, the history used to be that there used to be a particular locality in your city which used to specialize in the sale of that product. Okay, so you went there, there will be 10 shops. So if I want to pick up marble, okay, I know I need to go to West Delhi and there will be 20 of these marble shops next to each other, or I need to go to Haryana side in Chhatarpur, there will be 20 marble shops and I go and pick up at competitive rates because they're all next to each other. Okay, so Shenzhen, you can just show up there and any component, electronic component you want of any category, of any quality, of any price, you can buy it literally there on the spot. Okay, one district, one product. What is that?
So that's what I was saying. One district, one product, which is a scheme of government, especially in the UP, which they are trying to bring in. I think it's an excellent thing because every part, individual part of that, even if it's an agarbatti uses so many components, so many materials. So all those materials should be made available locally, maybe produced locally, so that the pricing, the cost in bulk becomes less, and then comes obviously the transportation. So if the ease of doing business extend to the transportation, fast, quick exports, then we are going to, again as you said on the agarbatti, we are going to not only agarbatti, be it anything, any component.
Okay, so but where can we do it? So we have great examples in this country. Okay, I mean ISRO is a great example of you can do frontline R&D, be successful, be low cost, not be hassle, be creating amazing stuff. Okay, ironically ISRO reports directly to Prime Minister's office. Okay, I don't know what lessons are to be learned there. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to take a segue here because since I mentioned ISRO, you've heard of the LAC, which is the light LCA, which is light combat aircraft that we are manufacturing. We are now building it, okay? But again, you're building and designing an airframe because you do not build the engine in India, okay? And it is no rocket science to tell you literally that if you can't build an engine, that's pretty much the nerve center of an aircraft, okay? So it's engine, avionics, and special materials that are required in the airframe, designing the airframe through R&D, through wind tunnels, you can figure it out, okay? So there are three main components. Engine we don't make, avionics we've just sort of started, and special material, the special steels that you need for the Navy, Air Force, we are still not good at it, okay? We're still having to import it. So this is because for 40 years, well, longer than that, the Americans in the 1940s captured all the Nazis, okay, put half of them in the Manhattan Project to build the nuclear industry and the nuclear weapon program, put the other half into NASA. I'm talking about Oppenheimer and Werner von Braun. Okay, there was one Nazi who didn't go to America. He went to Argentina to design airframes and aero engines. He was hired by India after that to come and build an airplane in India, but hey presto, the Americans made him disappear. So these gross double standards that have debilitated frontline research in this country. Now, I want you to just imagine each Rafale aircraft which we bought 36 from France. You're talking about average prices for one aircraft, $100 million. Okay? So if the reverse was happening, if you're actually selling 36 aircraft, every aircraft would be $100 million. You won't have to worry about OROP, this and all that, pension and this, that. You could just make the money from there and pay your armed forces. So this is when structural change happens, and defense expenditure is the second largest foreign exchange drain after oil and gas. Okay? So important lessons on what the problems have been. So now let's come back to a reality check. Ankit Jain, we do trade with China. Okay? I have a lot of friends, and I'm sure you do also, whose entire purpose of existence, business, dhanda, everything is that they go to China, see क्या-क्या वहाँ बिक रहा है, अपना ठप्पा लगाते हैं उस पे और यहाँ पर आके Amazon पे बेच देते हैं. Okay? That's their entire business.
Correct.
Okay? Now, that is a problem. What do we do?
This is exactly what you're saying, and it's actually happening. It's happening big time. And where the course starts, we are not helping the big businesses to grow much bigger. Even now, Amazon and Flipkart. Amazon is Chinese, is an American company. Flipkart was an Indian, bought by the Walmarts. And to solve the problem is we have to come out with a structural change and a scalability of the industry. Otherwise, it won't happen. The way we were talking about one district, one product, that might also work. The China, we can copy what China did with one Shenzhen with one kind of products. Maybe that's the mode of it. But we have to some way stop getting these products from China. That. But
they're building them cheap. Okay, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't work. It's a hit and a miss. Okay, when it comes to Chinese, the Chinese can accurately, they have different grades of fakes as well. Okay,
correct.
Right? I mean, you can have A-grade fakes which are actually from the same factory, just don't have the logo. Okay, and you can have really cheap fakes which cost 1/10 of the price that make your MI phone look like an Apple, but is actually not an Apple. Okay, including the software will look like it. So they're excellent at faking it, but they've somehow fake it till you make it. I don't know. Is that reasonable, Farhan Pettiwala? Fake it till you make it.
I think that's what the Chinese have been doing, and they've been good at it. Let's appreciate the fact that they have grown their economy at a GDP of 8% over the last 30 years. But I think that's one of the reasons why global companies have now realized, and they all have a China plus one strategy, because clearly what happened during the pandemic, everybody realized that they were putting their eggs in China. And now India, I think, over there has a huge plus point.
No, but our plus point comes when it's just cheaper and easier, right?
Yeah, and I think
okay. Now the Chinese told us at the very beginning, Farhan Pettiwala, when this entire COVID thing happened, right? Yeah. We were told that the Chinese system of doing things, they want to go in, right? Yeah. And in 15 days, they'll make a 5,000 bed hospital because their system is just so good. They'll do these lockdowns. You guys can never manage in your democracies. You guys are screwed, okay? The Chinese will have it under control. Well, the reverse happened, okay? The Chinese are not under control right now, and you and I are sitting here just fine. True. Okay, so we have come out of it. So something went right there. I don't know what, fingers crossed, whatever nazar, buri nazar you want to take away from this, okay? The mirchi and nimbu you want to put into this, okay? But something went right, okay, and something went wrong, all right? So if I'm told that the Chinese can come in and they'll say if the factory is getting built, it is getting built. 2 days it's getting built, okay? What did we do right in the past 2 years that we just need to replicate in normal times?
I think that's where the government comes in, Rishabh. Clearly, the Chinese government has incentivized their manufacturing hubs. They have given them, tax holidays. They don't burden their entrepreneurs saying, hey, you've forgotten to pay a tax 10 years ago. Now you come back and pay us penalty and tax.
But I'm sure they have their own problems. I mean, every company has to have somebody from the Communist Party sitting on their board. I'm sure unka bhi hafta chalta hoga. I mean, look what happened to Jack Ma, right? Jack Ma fell out of line and they destroyed him. He's vanished. He's in hiding. He's in exile. It's not like Putin doesn't do these things. There was some Chinese, entrepreneur in Odisha who just fell off his hotel a few days ago. So let's not say that Putin doesn't do these things, but they have the style that they back up people. Okay, if they fall out of line, they destroy them. Okay, Khodorkovsky and others were billionaires that made money in the oil and gas sector here. But my question, Mr. Pettiwala, was we did something right.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that here we are, right?
Yeah.
We got the hospitals, we found the vaccine. Kuch to kiya humne. I won't say it was just a miracle. We did something right.
So, talking about what you just said, look at what Mumbai city did during the COVID pandemic. I mean, clearly we had an extremely great leader like Iqbal Singh Chahal, who actually went out and built those jumbo clinics and all of those, I mean, imagine what would have happened. Dharavi with COVID pandemic would have gone completely out of control. But great leadership, great example. But what are we doing now? We are again going and starting putting holes. Hey, you spend more money. Hey, you did this. Hey, you didn't take tenders. Now, look, we have to give our, people the freedom to do, because India's focus, I think, Rishabh, we're going behind the wrong matrix and we're measuring the wrong statistics. I know every budget we say direct tax has grown so much, indirect tax has grown so much.
No.
Are we talking about how many new jobs have we created? Are we talking about how
No,
many?
but how do we create? I mean, I don't know how to calculate the jobs. Our best guess is just a best guess. Ladies and gentlemen, if anybody in this country, I don't care who he is, okay, gives you jobs data, okay, it's called lappa maroing, all right? We do not have jobs data of anything. We ourselves say 90% unstructured. 90% unstructured means that 90% jobs data we don't have, okay? So even at the highest levels in government, at economists, in this Ayog, that Ayog, they are guessing that if you're building this highway, we are probably creating these many jobs, okay? This is totally Ram Bharose because the statistical models are so bad. So having put the caveats that all job data is suspect, okay? How do we do a touch-feel approach that employment generation in this country is happening? Prasun Sharma joining us on the broadcast, Rajiv Gupta joining us on the broadcast, Gautam Mukherjee joining us on the broadcast. Prasun, are we generating jobs? We are growing at 7%. Are we generating jobs? Are jobs coming? I know in my industry, no, they're not coming.
I think, as you rightly said, but whatever data we have that says, I talk about startups, the compound annual growth of job employment generation from startup is 78%. And if you were talking about China, so the startup ecosystem in China created around 200 million jobs. So even if we create half of them, now we have 90,000 plus startup ecosystem, even if we can double it. So we can easily create around 200 million jobs in the ecosystem.
No, but how will I know if I create 200 million? How do the Americans track job data week on week? Okay. I mean, I can tell you exactly down to the last digit.
Optical fiber networks, and so they are not just shenanigans, they are required, they are important. And what is again more important is, as you mentioned earlier on this R&D, I will like to talk about that, is that billions of dollars, maybe trillions, was invested by US government, Japanese government, Chinese government into their industry.